You might be wondering, if there's a Dodgers-Yankees World Series, who am I rooting for? The answer is nobody. I will refuse to watch it. And there's some reasons why I was willing to cheer for rivals in other events, and I'm not willing to in this case. There's a few reasons as to why this is different than other times when I'm willing to cheer for someone who I don't particularly like in a championship round. Like, as an example, I was willing to cheer for the Philadelphia Phillies over the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2023. There's a few reasons why. First of all, I'm both a Cubs and a Mets fan, but more so Mets. That being said, the Mets were a non-factor in 2023. They got off to, a decent start, finishing the month of May with a 29-27 record and looking like they had some signs of promise. I mean, they fell off from their 14-7 start through their first 21 games, but they looked competent. They imploded hard in June, and they could not surge fast enough in July to put themselves in any sort of position to contend. And while we saw the 2024 Tigers could do, the 2023 Mets could not do that. They quickly fell out of the playoff picture until they were ultimately eliminated. And while there was some glimmers of hope through like the first 2 months that the 2023 Mets could make it back, that hope was quickly washed away in June. Speaking of washed away, we have not seen anything here get washed away in multiple weeks, months even, due to the drought. But the next time it rains significantly, and not just a small pattering, I will record it. As far as the, the Phillies Diamondbacks, I was like, okay, so I'm a Cubs fan, and the Diamondbacks were the main reason why the Cubs could not make the playoffs, because they could not win against the Diamondbacks. And if they had been able to go even 3-4 against the D-backs, they would have made the playoffs. But instead, they went 1-6 against the D-backs. I was also sort of figuring how, even though I liked them, even though I was a Met fan too, more significantly than the Phillies, the Mets were a non-factor. And I did not want to see the Diamondbacks get to a World Series when the Cubs could have easily have done so. Plus, the Diamondbacks' point differential of -15 was actually worse than that of the Mets at -12. Like, the Diamondbacks had a worse point differential than the Mets, but somehow that translated to 9 more wins, and they got a postseason appearance and then were able to do some serious damage in the postseason. So I was willing to, in that case, put it aside and cheer for the Phillies, since I was more showing about me being a Cubs fan anyway, since the Mets completely stunk in 2023 and looked incompetent the whole way around. Whereas the Cubs, I actually thought they could finally make it to the playoffs and make a bit of a run for it, and they couldn't. 2024 NBA Finals, another example. It's the Boston Celtics versus the Dallas Mavericks, and as a Philadelphia 76ers fan, you might think that I would go out there and cheer for the Mavericks, but I didn't, because I'm also an Eagles fan, and there's the Dallas Cowboys. And I can tell you this much about Cowboys fans: they are atrocious, and what other sports teams they root for come in all different kinds of varieties. But a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans who actually live in the area are going to be Mavericks fans, as compared to, say, in the MLB, where even if they live in the Dallas area, a lot of the time they will gravitate towards being fans of the of the Houston Astros. You have Cowboys fans, usually they're either Yankees fans or Astros fans. Sometimes you can get them in a variety of, I know Cowboys Padres, I know a Cowboys Mets fan, but usually it's going to either be Cowboys Yankees or it's going to be Cowboys Astros. Cowboys Rangers is actually rare. But in the NBA, you're much more going to get Cowboys Mavericks. It's either Cowboys Mavericks I've seen or Cowboys Lakers. Obviously, Cowboys Yankees Lakers absolutely suck. But if you are a fan of the Cowboys, and you're probably a fan of the Mavericks too. So I wasn't just gonna like go out there and cheer for the Mavericks. And for the Celtics, yes, there's obviously a lot of pain inflicted because the Celtics defeated Sixers closely in the semifinals of 2023. But I'd also made a bet that the Celtics were going to beat the Heat, thinking objectively. So I was, in a way, already cheering for the Heat. I mean, for the Celtics, because they would make me some money if they beat the Heat in the series, and they did. So I was then willing to think that, okay, if they'd already bailed me out once, obviously I didn't cheer for them against the Cavaliers or the Pacers, but against the Mavericks, I was like, it's really hard to cheer for the team, but I was fine cheering for the Boston Celtics, especially since I didn't think that their path to the NBA Finals was actually, a Mickey Mouse. I know that I'm going to be seen as a little bit hypocritical for saying that the Yankees have a cakewalk to the World Series. Trust me, I'm going to get into this video as to why I think the Celtics deserved their path to the championship and the Yankees didn't. Because while it sounds very hypocritical, there is a reason why. So, as far as the what's it called? NBA Finals, the Celtics were, even though they were like a really annoying team, I was just like, I can't cheer for the Mavericks. Any other team from the West, I would have cheered for them, but against the Mavericks, I couldn't do it. I couldn't cheer for the Mavericks. This is different though, mainly because first of all, it's either the Yankees, the crosstown rivals that I'm only going to cheer for if they're playing the Astros or another huge rival, or the Dodgers, the team that would have eliminated the Mets in the playoffs. And even though I like Shohei Ohtani sort of, I don't like the fact that he's going to probably kick the Mets out of the playoffs. The Mets, as of now, have about a 19% chance to make the World Series, 81% chance that's Dodgers-Yankees. So you got to look at this and think that, okay, so I don't like the Dodgers because they eliminated us and they're also an annoying team. So that's how I don't like the Yankees. And those are my only two options, and they're pretty crappy. And as far as path to the championships, looking at the MLB, and then we can compare it to the NBA too, like the Mavericks, I will say this, they at least had a tough road to the championships, but it wasn't really as tough as you think. Because basically, the Mavericks played the Clippers, which, the only time they're favored to win. They then beat an Oklahoma City Thunder team with absolutely zero relevant postseason experience. Then they beat the Timberwolves, a team that constructed their roster solely to beat the Nuggets and not actually to be legitimate contenders. Like, the Timberwolves did not construct their roster to do anything except beat the Nuggets. And so they got exposed by the Mavericks. The Celtics, yes, I know that they had to play a bunch of teams with injuries along the way. But the entire East, except for the Celtics, was banged up. And the Celtics had a few injuries, too. Like if the Pacers had made it to the NBA Finals, everyone would say the Pacers had a, cakewalk to the championship series as well. Because in the Eastern Conference Finals, both the Celtics and Pacers had injuries. And obviously the Bucks were injured with no Giannis, but when they had him and they won 58 games, they were still eliminated in the first round. I think a large part of this comes down to instability in the front office by firing their head coach when he had a 30-13 record with the team and bringing in Doc Rivers, who had a losing record with his time as head coach. And I can tell you this much, as a Sixers fan, Doc Rivers is terrible. You had the Knicks, obviously have significant injuries to their team when the Pacers played them. But I mean, no, I didn't, And for the Celtics, yes, the Miami Heat and the Cleveland Cavaliers both had injuries with no Jimmy Butler or Donovan Mitchell. But, people also have to realize that the Sixers were the 17 in the first place because of injuries to key players such as Joel Embiid, but also other guys on their team, like Tyrese Maxey. They might not have had too many injuries in the postseason itself, although there was a huge scare with Joel Embiid. But still, it was just like, like we all thought that they were injured too. And the Celtics were a team with a 64-18 record. So what we're going to get into with the Yankees is how I don't think that they deserve to be this way because their league is soft. And while it's true that the Eastern Conference was a lot softer than the Western Conference, seeing as the 50-win New York Knicks got the 2 seed, whereas in the Western Conference, I think the 50-win team was the Phoenix Suns, who were put into the 6th seed. They had 50 wins to 49, but still, you get my point. The Celtics still had 64 wins. They would have gotten the 1 seed in the Western Conference as well. So even though the Eastern Conference was soft, they had a lot of cushion. Whereas we're going to see with the Yankee bums is that that's not the case. So for the Dodgers, looking at their path to the World Series, they were the 1 seed across both leagues at 98 wins. And then they had to play the superstar Padres. The Padres were a really hot team this year. They were the hottest team in the second half. Dodgers were the second hottest team. It was a really close series where the Padres had a 2-1 lead in the series. However, the Dodgers came back and won that series in 5. We saw the San Diego Padres have a ton of star talent on a team like Luis Arias, Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado, and all the other guys against the Dodgers who had Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, even Max Muncy was able to have a breakout in the postseason. We really began to see just all this stuff coming out of the Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres. And the Padres had 93 wins too for a 4 seed. They were really good as a 4 seed too. And then they had to play the 89-win New York Mets in the NLCS. The Mets are a team that started off about as poor of a start as you could have, starting off with a 24-35 record through 59 games, coming off of a disappointing split from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Then they turned their season around, only losing 1 series in the next 2 months after that. They turned their season around. They did have some tailspins, such as the end of the season tailspin or the tailspin encountered in the first half of August, or really all of August, but they were able to overcome that with huge winning streaks, such as the 7-game win streak in June or the 9-game win streak at the start of September, or even the win streak in July. They had multiple 5-game win streaks in the month of July. They were able to overcome their tailspins by having these good stretches. The Mets, were in this position since the middle of June that they were going to be contending for a playoff spot, and they got it. And they had to do it with the Braves, Diamondbacks, and Padres all taking off. So they also play a really hot team, and I think they're going to win. But, the Mets were just a really tough team that, whereas compared to the Yankees, you look at the Yankees, they have 94 wins. They're the 1 seed. In the National League, they'd be a 3 seed and have to play in a wild card round. I'm not even kidding. Or maybe they'd even be in the National League East and be stuck as a wild card team. Obviously, yes, in a scenario, unless another team gets out, the Mets aren't making the playoffs, but you're starting to see my point. They had a bit of a cakewalk because the American League was a lot softer than the National League this year, as it can be seen how the Yankees were able to make it in on 94 wins as the 1 seed. So you look at the road, they played the 86-win Royals, and then the 92-win Guardians. The Guardians were not deserving of the 2 seed at 92 wins. They just weren't. And Emmanuel Clase, who was deemed as star closer, just stunk this postseason, was revealed as a fraud. Kansas City Royals, the Royals were never in a position to even have a shot of beating the Yankees. All the teams that did, the Yankees didn't even have a chance to see. The Orioles went 8-5 against the Yankees, and they couldn't beat the Royals. The Astros, thankfully, got stomped by the Tigers, and while they only went 1-6, we know how history goes whenever it's between the Astros and the Yankees. Tigers, yes, the Yankees went 4-2 against the Tigers this year, but they went 1-2 in a more recent series when the Tigers, began to turn their season around, and they were the hottest team in baseball. Honestly, if the Tigers manager pulled Scuba when he was supposed to, then the Tigers probably win that game and the series and probably beat the Yankees and make it to the World Series. Like, the Yankees got so bailed out with who they played because certain teams stack up against other teams in, weird ways. And looking at the perspective of the Yankees, they had a really easy time with how everything worked out in their favor. And we all know the MLB wanted the Yankees in the World Series anyway, seeing as Rangers D-backs was a ratings nightmare. So we have to prove it to them that we're not just going to watch Dodgers-Yankees World Series. But it'll probably still be highly rated anyway.